The following video was sponsored by the Greek American Heritage Society of Philadelphia, preserving and promoting our community's history.
Our guest today has never been very far from the water. Born and raised on the island of Crete, he witnessed the World War II invasion by the Germans that devastated and shaped his early life. By the time he was 18, he had lived through the war-torn years of Greece in poverty. With little opportunity, he joined the Greek Navy in 1952. After 3 years of schooling, he achieved the rank of Petty Officer First Class and was assigned to work with the Greek fleet. He was stationed at the Greek Navy Yard in Salamina. In 1956, he went to submarine school and ended up spending 7 years as a submariner. In 1957, he was assigned by the Greek Navy to travel to the U.S. to pick up an American submarine in Connecticut. He stayed a year, visited the great cities of the East, New York, Boston, and Philadelphia. On his second trip to the U.S. in 1961, he visited Philadelphia, where he was introduced to his future wife, Maria Makridis, at the original Church of St. Demetrius on 58th and Larchwood. He made the leap, discharged in 1963 from the Navy. He married Maria in Greece and arrived in the U.S. for the third time to stay in the ever-expanding Greek community in West Philadelphia. He has raised 3 children, George, Despina, and Christina, has worked for several companies in the U.S. as an electrical engineer, and has been a member of the AHEPA. He is a member of St. Luke Greek Orthodox Church. He spent 35 years sailing his boat he calls Happy Days in the Chesapeake Bay to regenerate his love of the sea and remember his homeland. Today that boat sits idle, awaiting John Zafiropoulos, a man of the sea, to guide her on one more journey. John Zafiropoulos, welcome to Cosmos Philly.
Thank you for inviting me. I have been in the States for almost 50 years. I enjoy to be in the States. My love for this country is big. I serve my country the best that I was able to do, even in the Navy, in the good times and bad times. I was unable to stay there to do a number of reasons as a career Navy officer, particularly when we had the devastation and the conflicts with the Cyprus. That time I was able to be discharged and became a civilian.
As I said earlier, you've always been around the sea. Is there one more journey in life around the sea you'd like to take? Maybe return to homeland?
My desire was to fly from Philadelphia to London with the Concorde and return to the state through the Queen Elizabeth. However, that it was not materialized because the Concorde, it was grounded. However, I'm going to Greece every year since my retirement, and my best time is again sailing in the Aegean Sea. I have friends that I grew up together, and we still maintain a close relationship. And with that, I'm very proud and friendly with them, because always they open their arms and embrace both of us as we arrive there.
So let's journey back to Crete. Tell us about your youth, growing up, those early years, what it was like for you as a child on the island of Crete.
During the early years before the invasion and after the start of the Second World War, life, it was mediocre. It was not good. Then we had the invasion, which happened in May of 1941. As a 6-year-old kid, I remember every single day from the time that the first bell tower sound that we have a bombing That time, the only way that they have, it was the bells, the church bells to sound so you can go to a shelter. I remember that one. The day that the invasion started, we are moved from where my mother, it was a teacher, from the teacher's quarters to a village general store, which is constructed by concrete as a shelter. The incline of the village, it was such that we have an open view of the area and the horizon. I still remember the big planes traveling make noise, and also the paratroopers dropping down as umbrellas coming down from the sky. We are in the village that particular day until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, approximately 2 o'clock in the afternoon, when a German plane veered off from their return and dropped some bombs in the village. The bomb hit the school and also the general store that we are. The school, it was completely destroyed. It burned to the ground. The general store has some damages, particularly in the area, on the storage area, who happened to have 2 victims, my mother's sister and a 12-year-old girl.
So that was your first experience at 6. Can you talk a little bit about your childhood before and after that, what it was like for you? You mentioned swimming as it was a big part of your life. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, after the invasion, it took about the whole summer, between May to September, that we traveled from area to area because everything was devastated. And we are living almost in the caves like ancient people. After that, we returned back to the place where my father and mother had, also where my grandparents was living. From 1942 to 1952, as I growing up, our theme, it was school. Of course, the school, it was not available. We are schooling at the church, at the churches, because the school, it was either wrecked by the war or it was occupied by the Germans. Our celebration or our entertainment or our playground, it was the sea. We went to see how good it was the weather, how warm it's going to be the day, so we can go and take a dump in the water. And from there on, my life never changed. I was thrilled with the water. I'm still thrilled with the water, and I love the water.
A small boy on the island of Crete, experiencing this devastating loss to your family, on the run for a few years, kind of living a very difficult life. But still there was this love of the water. Tell us about when you got to 18, because at 18 there wasn't much of an opportunity to do anything on the island. You decided to join the Navy. Can you take us forward and how that came to be?
Well, I was in the high school. I was at high school, and the area that it was in the city where the high school it was close to the market.
What town was that?
Hanya. So you can see that we're going to have to walk 7 miles from the house to go to the school. Then at the afternoon we have to walk back again from the school to the house.
7 miles.
7 miles.
No buses.
No buses. Nothing. The only thing you can have a little donkey with a carriage, because even mules was there. It was nothing that, as a boy, that I was able to see and visualize for the future. Therefore, in even that particular age of 17, 18, I had a dream to do something better than anything else. So with that reason, I decided to go either to the Merchant Marines or to the Navy. I had to make an application to two schools. One school it was in Hydra, who it was the Merchant Marine School, and the other it was on Porus, who was the Navy Petty Officer School.
Now, before you had reached the age of 18, I'm wondering, what's it like growing up on an island? Do you feel like your life is completely different than mainland Greece? And when was the first time you actually got off the island?
Well, everybody look Athens as the capital, and they call it the Pρωτεύουσα. So if you're going to Athens, you are supposed to be a big person. My mother was a teacher, and in 1943, when still were under the occupation of the Germans, decided to go to Athens to reinstate or renew her teaching privileges. That time I escort her as a not to be alone, and we took with a kaiki from Chania to Piraeus.
Oh my. So what was your first...
First impression, I saw the big buildings. I never saw it before. It was in Piraeus. Still, it was the sign of the devastation during the war, and I still remember buildings in the Piraeus that it was shade with black smoke from the bombing, and so walls or windows or doors not missing.
So when we talked briefly, I want to back up. You told me as a small boy, when you wanted to go swimming, you used a kolokithi, a pumpkin, to hold on to so you could stay buoyant in the water. Could you tell me a little bit more about that experience and growing up like that?
Well, during the Second World War, nothing was available. We don't had nothing. We are trying to implement anything that it was in our disposal to make use of it. We don't had life jackets. Nothing was available. We don't had balloons or anything else. So the only way that you have to start doing something, it was by utilize what it was available. The availability was the old dry pumpkins that they had, took all the seeds out, and we use it as a flask, they call it. And we use it to haul it, or put it up between the two arms and try to learn how to swim or stay above the water.
Amazing. Okay, let's go into the Navy. You're 18 now. You signed up and you went to mainland Greece. Tell us about your journey into the Navy.
We have. I had two applications. One for the School of Merchant Marines, who is in Spetses, and the other was in Porus, which was for the Petty Officer of the Greek Navy. And I told my parents the first acceptance that is going to come is going to be the one that I take. I'm not going to wait for the second one. So the first came from the Navy, and I left the island of Crete. By that time, it was more affordable and more convenient to go back to Piraeus, because we have now commercial boats to go back and forth.
What year was this?
52. So I left and I went there and directly to the Porus, and I left alone. I can say one thing more on that. Until that particular year, I never wear a long pants. I still had shorts, and I went to Porus with the shorts and the shirt.
What did your family think of you leaving?
My mother never liked the idea. My father, he was not so convinced until I really threatened them. I really told my father, if you want to see me, you sign the papers. If you're not, I'm going to leave, and I'm going to not see you again. Because I was also, by that time, it was the beginning of the Korea War. So the Greece was a part of the NATO too. Therefore, our troops, he was going to Korea at the same time. So my determination, it was to get out from these poverty years and find something better for me and for my life.
How did you end up being a submariner?
I was during the first year and a half in the Navy, in the ships or in the destroyers. I was able to be with a group of petty officers and a group of officers that it was more to the fleet type and not to the submarine type. So a friend of mine that he was in the submarine said to me, why you don't make an application to come over? First of all, we have a incentive of pay to start with. Two, our services is rewarded as a dangerous occupation. Therefore, each year you have 2 years of your retirement. So all that combined make me to decide to go.
Well, our neighbor is Turkey. Was there ever any fear from Turkey, or did you see any action? What was it like for you to be a submariner?
No, we don't had any, so to speak, conflicts between one and the other, because don't forget that both countries was in the Navy and in the NATO. My experience in the submarines, particularly before I went to the fleet type, the American-made submarine, it was the English type, V-type submarines. We were small, compact, and very, very uncomfortable, so to speak.
Not like today's submarines at all?
Not by any means of imagination. They had no refrigeration, they had no air conditioning, they had no beds, they had nothing except a helm on the forward torpedo room that you can have to share with another person.
What did you get out of being a submariner? What did it teach you?
Really make me a person to believe for the human race, make me a person to think before act, make me a person to appreciate the surroundings, make me a person to love and respect my fellow men.
At some point, you were assigned to come to the United States to pick up a submarine. Tell us about your first visit to the United States.
The first visit on 1957 on the United States, we flew from Athens to Germany, and then from Germany to McGuire Air Force Base via the American Air Force Transport System. When we arrived in McGuire Air Force Base, the Teamsters Union, they had a strike, so we cannot have buses to bus us from New Jersey to Connecticut. So the American Navy had to make arrangements to take us from McGuire Air Force Base, from the plane, to go to the New York Navy Yard, which was in Brooklyn, until the strike was settled so we can have a transportation. There we stayed for 3 days. In my stay for 3 days, as anxious as I was encouraged to visit New York City and see all the skyscrapers. It was Saturday and Sunday we had the liberty to visit New York City. We left the base with the understanding and the instructions of the guides to take the subway and go to 52nd Street, get out 52nd Street, and go around Times Square, and so forth. We arrived in the Brooklyn train station, who is elevated train station, Sunday morning. We went up to the platform. The first train came, opened the doors, and as we looked inside, it was a tremendous amount of newspapers on the floor. There, we never saw anything in our life in Athens or in Piraeus on our transportation. Therefore, we assumed that this was the cleaning train, and he had to make a sweep from the stations and put all the papers there. The second train came, and it was worse than the first one. So we decided to go down to the bottom area, where is the entrance of the train, and ask the attendant, what happened? Where is the train is going to come? So the guy said to us that the 3 trains already came. What you waiting for? So we walk up to the platform again. Meanwhile, a couple walk inside at the same time with us, an American couple. So as the train came and the door opened, the gentleman walked inside and pushed by his feet the papers and won't sit down in the chair, so we follow up. That's the way that we went to the downtown New York City.
Well, on your second trip, you also came for business for the Greek Navy, but this time you met your future wife, Maria Makridis. You met her at the St. Demetrius Greek Orthodox Church in its first location on 58th and Larchwood. Tell us about that initial visit here to our community.
Well, I stayed in Philadelphia for 8 months the second time, and I was visiting the Exide company that he was making batteries for the submarines. It was during the second trip here in Philadelphia, I had met a lady that he was working in the Navy Yard, and she was very nice to invite me during the Holy Week to visit the Greek Orthodox Church in St. Demetrius in Larchwood. It was Good Thursday night when I came. At that time, this particular friend introduced me to Maria.
So she was playing matchmaker?
Well, it's not necessarily a matchmaker. It just they was both in the choir of the church.
Okay, so your heart was thumping. You said, "This is the girl for me." What happened?
No, not exactly. The last moment when I was ready to leave from here and go back to Greece, that time she came to say goodbye, and she started crying and said, "I'm not going to see you again." And I said, "Well, you know, when you're getting older, you come over and visit me in Greece." And we stay in contact from 1961 to 1963 just by mails and telephones, until she came to Greece in 63.
Well, there was one more trip to make, a third trip to Philadelphia, and it would be your final trip. You were being discharged in 1963, I believe. What brought you to Philadelphia in 1963 after you were discharged?
Well, before my discharge, I was married to Mary in Greece, in Piraeus. After that, I had in my mind that I can go in any place so I can make my life better. And the first opportunity was to come to the United States.
Was there any thought about returning to Crete from your family, or did they encourage you to move forward with your life? What was that like?
By that time, as an adult, I had made my own decisions, and I had the blessing for both my parents to do whatever I like to do, because by that time they recognized that my philosophy and my way of living and my way of life, it was on my own. Therefore, they are consider to give me full blessing.
So you settled in the West Philadelphia expanding community. Tell us a little bit about what it was like for you seeing that now as an American or a Greek coming and settling into a Greek American community.
Well, the problem it was that I was not able to have enough fun to live on my own. Therefore, I stay with my in-laws. Mary, parents, and I, even though we know each other for a few hours, we hit it together. And my father-in-law opened his arm, had me there, and he said, stay there as long as you can. So the first year and a half, I stayed with them. Matter of fact, my both kids, George and Debbie Despina, he was born in their home. I started working in the city of Philadelphia after that, and slowly I was able to accumulate more wealth for my own here, also to pay my commitments that I had in Greece. Because by that time I had already built a house in Greece, so I had some money that had to be sent it to there to pay that, as they call it, the grammatia.
Were you missing Greece at all at this time? Were you traveling back and forth at all?
No, not at all. The trip to Greece, it was not feasible because I had two kids, and two young kids, and it was not possible to take a trip at that time. In 1969, I brought over my parents to stay with us and also to see their grandkids, because they never had any grandkids before that.
So you've got two kids, then you moved out here to Springfield, where you had your third child. Greek traditions and customs, Greek American with a Greek. What language is spoken in the house? How are customs handled?
Well, we had a mixer of languages to speak with. Mary was more toward to the English language, so I can improve my language and also the Greek community that we had here. My kids, it was growing and in a Greek tradition. Matter of fact, when my son went to the first grade, his teacher said, "Oh, it was very good for him, even though he's not American born, because he was mixing the English and the Greek together."
Well, tell us this. What do people not know about you that they should know? Is there something they should know about you?
People embrace me to what I am. And I'm very fortunate that even though I do not have any relatives or any blood relatives in here, particularly in Philadelphia or in the United States, everybody was very friendly and very courteous to me. Even today, I create more friendship and more warm feelings with the people around me here than any relatives that I can think about in the other side.
Do you keep abreast of what goes on in Greece? Do you follow the news back there?
Not only I follow the news, but the people or the guys that I grew up together as a young guy, we still have a very close relationship.
So you keep in touch with them?
We keep in touch with him. Matter of fact, if I don't call them a week, they call me, and they ask, their question is, "Τι στο διάλογο έχεις, δεν θυμάσαι?"
Do you guys still go swimming together?
We're going more than swimming. We have a person that he has a sailboat, so every time we're going up there, we're sailing. My best man there has a summer home. We want to visit there in the island. The other buddy of mine has a summer home in the Pidavros. We're going to there.
So these are all your childhood friends. All your life you kept them. Yeah. Tell me let's talk about sailing a little bit. You've been sailing in the Chesapeake for 35 years now. Like we said earlier, it's a love affair, being born into it, that you've had your whole life with the water. What's it like for you to be in the Chesapeake? Now, you haven't done it in a little while, but for 35 years you have done it. What was it like for you? What does it mean to you to sail?
You have to be a open-minded sailor, and also you have to be a love of the sea to enjoy that. It's more than anything else that you can imagine to drop the anchor in a little alcove and go down below and hear the little noise of the water hitting the side of the boat. Flip, flip, flip. It's like the little men or the little woman hold the baby on their arms and try to pacify them to go to sleep. This is something that you live, something that you love, something you cannot otherwise experience unless you are there in person to feel it.
John Zafiropoulos, thank you for speaking with us today. We want to wish you all the best of luck, and we hope to see you out there sailing again soon.
Thank you very much for coming. I'm very glad that you invite me for this episode. Thank you very much. God bless you, and God bless this beautiful country.
For more information about sponsoring or viewing the interview series, visit the Greek American Heritage Society of Philadelphia online at gahsp.org.